Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where and when you are listening to this. This is Coffee with Kevin, and I am Kevin. I'm your host here, and this is my coffee. Mm-mm-mm. Such a good coffee this morning. I hope you're having a hot cup of coffee or a hot cup of tea or anything, any drink to share with me. This morning, it's give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks with a grateful heart. And gratitude is something I feel really, really, really positive about. I feel very strongly about. I try to teach that with all my clients and all my students. Mm, yes, give thanks with a grateful heart. Now, today, September 17th. Oh my God, we're just flying through September. It seems like only last week it was September 10th that we did this. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And today on September 17th in 1683, it's a few years back, 1683, Dutch scientist Antoine van Leeuwenhoek. I don't know if I pronounced that right. He was the first to report the existence of bacteria. 1683. Oh my gosh. You figured we'd have a cure for the common cold by now, at least. But it always amazes me. I don't think of medical science or science, for that matter, going back that far. And it goes back much further, much further. But it just amazes me that we had things like that hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Let's see what else. What else? Oh, in 1916, World War One flying ace, the Red Baron. Yes, there was a Red Baron. I know for those of you who watch Charlie Brown, Snoopy loves to play the Red Baron. Wins his first aerial combat near Cambrai, France. The Red Baron. Oh my goodness. And let's see, in 1978, a little bit more modern, but I remember this because I was growing up. I was 18 years old. Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin and Jimmy Carter signed the Camp David Accords, frameworks for peace in the Middle East. And I bring this up because look where we are all these years later, and it is still a mess in the Middle East. It was a good start. It was a nice try. And hope, look where we are now. Mankind has its problems. 1972, however, I'm going to go back a few years, was the debut of the TV series MASH, which ran for so many years, and I loved MASH. It was just wonderful. I can practically hear the music in my head right now, the theme song of MASH. It's pretty cool. Birthdays today. Well, Hank Williams, Sr., Hank Williams, born in 1923 on this day. And someone more recent, Patrick Mahomes, was born on this day. Today is his 29th birthday. So, yes, what a day, September 17th. What an incredible day. Little trivia. Abbott and Costello straight man, Bud Abbott, weds Betty Smith. She was 22 at the time. This was in 1918. Abbott and Costello, for those of you who know who they are, the comedian vaudeville act. Just hilarious, just hilarious. Who's on First is what they're very famous for. Okay, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. I was reading, or more listening. I like to say reading because a lot of my books are listened to nowadays. If you haven't tried it, definitely try it. There's audiobooks and there's Audible. I listen to Audible. And I was listening to Mere Christianity. Mere Christianity. It's a famous author that I read when I was very young, C.S. Lewis. Yes, he was a Christian author, but he also wrote a lot of, he wrote a lot of books, a lot of child books and everything else. And I found him, and I found the C.S. Lewis Essentials, And I said, yeah, I might as well listen to this. Now, I had heard about this book, Mere Christianity. I've never read it, but I was listening to it, and it's pretty good. And it was written in 1944, right at the end of the war. Right at the end of the war. So he has a lot of references to the war and a lot of references that are of that day and age, of course. But he's talking about pride as being the most of the worst. The worst, I don't know if he used the word sin, but the worst thing that we can have. And he talks about, pride was the fall of the devil, or was the creation of the devil. It was a fallen angel in the stories. It was a fallen angel who had so much pride, thought he was as good as God. And he then was kicked out of heaven and became the devil. Pride hurt him. And we know pride is all, we know this pride in a very negative sense. And I've got a few quotes here today that'll talk to that. Okay. Pride cost us more than hunger, thirst, and cold. Thomas Jefferson is talking about pride. He's talking about men or people with too much pride, so much pride. And as probably a lot of the people he was working with to form the government. And you could imagine, a lot of egos there. Pride builds us up. Pride builds walls between people. Humility builds bridges. I love this one. It is, again, talking about pride as being this really terrible thing. And people with big egos, a lot of pride, they push away people. They don't want to be with people who are less than them. They push them away. And the last quote I have for today is, pride is at the bottom of all great mistakes. Pride is at the bottom of all great mistakes. By John Ruskin. So he's saying that, everybody who fails in one way or another, at the bottom of it is pride that caused it. I can go biblical, and here's one: when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. That's Proverbs. When pride comes, then comes disgrace. So pride isn't looked at as anything good anywhere. I was thinking about this, and of course we always hear this, we always hear this. And I was thinking about this, and I thought, with my clients who have self-esteem issues, which basically is just about all of us nowadays, we have a hard time in our society to maintain a good, healthy self-esteem. But with my clients that really have issues, I try to get them to feel proud about themselves and the things they've done. I try to get them to look back and say, okay, there are things you've done in your life that are good. And I want them to feel that pride in what they've done. And here we are, we're talking about all these variety of things that, pride causes issues, pride causes problems, and we shouldn't be proud. We should be humble. And here I am thinking, well, what my clients need is they have to have some pride in themselves and what they've done. Now, how is it do we have these two opposing things? Well, I think there's different levels of pride. And the pride we've been talking about with these quotes here is what we also refer to as ego. When someone has a big ego, someone is boasting all the time. That's an outward pride. I'm this, I'm that. It's great to feel good about the things you've done and to help that motivate you. But then to actually show people how good you are just for the fact of showing them, just for the fact of, and people do that, by the way. People use this ego, this type of pride to make themselves feel better. To make themselves feel better. They go out and they proudly show the world, proudly show everybody around them what they've done. And that big ego is actually to make themselves feel better. And it's a conundrum. It really is. Because people with those big egos and showing their pride all over the place usually have low self-esteem. And people with real low self-esteem and don't have that big ego, by the way, they need a little bit more pride. So it is a bit of a conundrum. But I think there's different levels. So I'm going to refer to that pride that these quotes refer to as ego. I'm going to refer to that as that big ego, someone who's egotistical. And I'm going to refer to the other pride as someone who actually can be happy with themselves, someone who's okay with their, more than okay with their abilities. That internal pride can grow and help them to see themselves as a worthwhile person. Pride also has got a new meaning in this century, and it started at the end of the last century. Of course, it's something that is owned by the LGBTQ plus community. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. I think I got it right anyway. And we have Pride Day, and they have pride flags, and they have pride. And that pride comes from the latter part of what I was talking about, not the ego part, the latter part, because for years and years and years, instead of pride, there was shame. Instead of pride, there was shame. So they wanted to not feel the shame anymore. And by the way, that's all of us with that low self-esteem. We do have that shame. You not feel the shame anymore, but feel the pride. Feel proud of who they are. Feel proud of being who they are in their own skin. That's the kind of pride I'm talking about. That is a good pride. It's good pride. Pride that helps lift us up. Our own pride. Now, here's the difference between the ego and that pride I'm talking about. The ego helps lift us up at the cost of others. This pride helps lift us up in building our own self-esteem. So pride is interesting. It really is interesting. So we can look at it in a really bad way. And we can say, hey, we need to be humble. We got to stop, building ourselves up externally. We need to be humble externally. And humility's got that same conundrum. Good morning. I got some pride right there. Humility's got that same conundrum, because a lot of these quotes talk about humility as opposed to pride. But if someone is very humble internally and say, no, this is not me, I'm not that good, that's the wrong type of humility as well. So I think if I talk about pride and humility, I'm talking about externally. Externally, pride is not a great thing, especially if it's used in a large way, used egotistically. And externally, humility is a good thing. Internally, pride can be a really good thing. And internally, humility cannot be a good thing. Isn't that strange? Isn't that really cool? So be proud of yourself. Be proud of your achievements. You just don't have to go shouting that at the rooftop. Be humble with other people, with friends and family and strangers. Be proud of yourself. Be proud of your own achievements internally. Feel it. And you can do that. Right now, I'm proud that I've got someone out there making noise. No, I'm not proud about that. That was our next door landscaper, if you heard the noise. Anyway, pride. It can be a great thing. It can be a bad thing. Watch how you use it. Okay, this has been another wonderful, wonderful week. I've got a lot to do. I will see you all next week. And look for any post of mine. If you like this, please comment, please share. Take care, all. See you next week. Got to get my coffee up there. Here we go. Gratitude. Give thanks.